Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, everybody, peace. Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast Show, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As you guys know, I'm your host, Casuan, and we've got a pretty interesting show today, guys. We're going to be covering some more introspective topics, and we're going to cover less news today and more insight and more perspective-based topics today. So we're going to close out the show today actually with discussing what's the most underrated NBA Finals performance of all time. And we're also going to be discussing whether Damian Lillard is a top 5 point guard in the NBA, being completely objective. And we're also going to be discussing whether AAU culture is hurting and stunting the development of youth basketball in America. But to start of the show, we're going to be discussing a little bit of NBA news, and that's the 76ers planning to sign Kelly Oubre Jr. But before we get started, if you haven't already, guys, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. Be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, typing in GSMC Sports Network. That way you can gain access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. Once again, all the support that you guys show us is greatly appreciated, and none of this is possible without you guys, the fans. So we're just so grateful for everything that you guys do for us, and that when you guys tune in, it's an honor and it's a privilege to share with you guys my insight on the world of basketball. And with that being said, guys, let's get right into it. So, as the headline says, 76ers are planning to sign Kelly Oubre Jr. As you guys know, Kelly Oubre is a late free agent signing for this offseason. He's coming from, the Charlotte Hornets. And this past season, though he only played 48 games due to injury, he averaged 20.3 points per game, which is a career high. He also shot career high 43% from the field and averaged in 30 minutes. As you guys know, he tore a ligament in his right hand, which cost him a chunk of time. But when he did play, he was extremely efficient, and he has shown, after being 7 years into the league, he has shown the development that many GMs saw when he came out of Kansas. And this is the player that Washington was hoping that he would develop into when they had him. As you guys know, he started his career in Washington and then got traded to Phoenix, and spent some time in Golden State as well before landing in Charlotte in 2021. And this is going to be a big pickup for Philly because Philly lost Jordan Yang and Jalen McDaniels and Shake Milton, some key pieces to their bench last year. Specifically Jordan Yang, who was a great shooter coming off the bench, and a great rebounder, and Shake Milton, who was one of the best backup point guards in the NBA. The stats wouldn't show it, his play would show in the film. So Kelly Oubre Jr. is going to be a huge addition to Philly. He's going to fill a defensive role coming off the bench, and he's going to provide a lot of energy. This is a guy that who is extremely explosive, does a good job crashing the boards, can be a great defender when he wants to be. Does a great job of scoring without the ball, moving without the ball, playing off the ball, playing within the offense. He's more than a 3-8 guy. He can play make to an extent as well. And he's a great rebounder. That's one of the things that he's been known for, or that one of the underrated parts of his game is his rebounding prowess. And obviously he's a great shooter, specifically off the catch, but he's shown the ability to, like I said, score not only off the ball but create his own shot as well. The ball doesn't stick when it's in his hands, and he's used to playing with the primary ball handler. He's played with point guards like John Wall. He's played with guards like Devin Booker. He's played with Steph Curry. He's played with LaMelo. So he's used to guards that are less Steph Curry, but more so John Wall and LaMelo, guys that are kind of ball dominant and need to create plays with the ball in their hands. So he's used to playing with those types of guards. So it won't be a problem for him adjusting to playing with James Harden, or even Joel Embiid at that. For guys where the ball sticks in their hands. And I think this is a great pickup, highly underrated pickup for Philly. And this just vaults Philly back into the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. I'm still a proponent that when Philly's healthy, that this is a team that is in contention to win the Eastern Conference, right up there with Milwaukee, right up there with Miami, right up there with Boston as some of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And I still believe that if Philly was able to pull out that Game 7 against Boston, that they would have made it to the NBA Finals. Though they would have lost to Denver, I do think they would have been able to get past Miami. Despite the great play that Miami was exuberating during that playoff run. But this is a great pickup for Philly, and Kelly Oubre is going to get a chance to show his talent and his skill set in a slightly bigger market than Charlotte. And a lot of people have forgotten Kelly Oubre because he was playing in a mid-market and a little bit of a smaller franchise such as Charlotte. But him being in Philly is going to get a chance for him to showcase his talent and his skill set, and to show that he's developed into a solid NBA player, and that he's starting to come to his prime, with it being his 7th year in the league. So great pickup for Philly. Great pickup for Philly right here. But guys, in our next segment, we're going to be discussing, is AAU culture stunting the development of the youth basketball here in America? We're going to be covering all of that in the second segment of our show, so be sure to stick around. You are not going to miss it. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we discussed the recent news in the NBA surrounding the 76ers and their intentions to sign Kelly Oubre Jr. to a 1-year deal. I think it's a great pickup for Philly. Great move. Great career move for Kelly Oubre Jr., in my opinion. And guys, be sure to stick around for the final segment of our show where we discuss the most underrated NBA Finals performance of all time. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing an interesting topic, a topic that needs to be discussed, quite frankly, and that is whether AAU culture is hurting the development of youth basketball here in America. And, let's go ahead and get right into it. Being someone that plays professional basketball, has played collegiate basketball, played, high-level high school basketball in Japan, and played AAU basketball on the AAU circuit as well. Someone that was ranked as a top 50 player for my class in the state of Virginia. Someone that was ranked as one of the top international players in my class by Hoop Group, one of the best scouting services in youth basketball. But I've seen the ins and outs of AAU basketball. I've played with the best of the best, with the Seventh Woods and the who else was from my class? 2015. I played with some of the best in the Hoop Group, but I've seen a lot. I've seen the good and the bad of AAU basketball, and I could do a whole show of what I've seen so far. But I don't want to get too much on a tangent. I want to stick to this concept right here. Being someone that played high school basketball in Japan, I was blessed to get a lot of development on my skill set, and the only time I would be privy to the AAU basketball circuit was when I would travel to America during the summertime to play on. I would travel to America just to play on the AAU circuit and to get that exposure. And specifically my freshman and my sophomore year, specifically my freshman year, I was not ready for the AAU circuit. I was not ready for the talent level and athleticism. And because I wasn't ready, I looked like I wasn't ready. I looked like I was a step behind all the guys. I mean, though I was playing an age above the age I was actually in, I was playing a grade up. However, I looked underdeveloped, and scouts see that. Coaches see that when they go to these events, when they go to these big AAU tournaments. They see that a player can look underdeveloped and not where they need to be, and when they see that, they automatically cross that guy off the list of who they're recruiting. And AAU can stunt the development of these guys because so many players, they want to get to the Peach Jam, they want to play on the Hoop Summit, they want to play in the biggest AAU event of the summer, and they want to get to all these events and big AAU tournaments and play for these coaches. But a lot of times players aren't ready. They're not ready for that talent level. They're not ready to be on that stage. And so when you're not ready, you end up getting exposed, and you end up putting yourself in a worse situation than you were before, because now once the coach has crossed you off your recruiting list, it's so hard to get back into good graces or to get back onto his recruiting list. So it's almost impossible. So you don't want to get onto a high-level AAU circuit until you're ready. And so I wasn't ready my freshman year for that circuit, and I got exposed. And then coming back to my sophomore year, my mindset shifted, that entire season, that entire sophomore year. I realized that I had to focus on my skill development. And that's where Point Guard College, PGC, great camp, by the way, 100% recommended to any young basketball player, whether it be in middle school, high school, elementary. They taught me the importance of skill development and actual skill development and actual player progression. And you're taught the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your time as a basketball player should be spent developing your skills, developing your game. The other 20% should be live game reads, and whether it be 4-on-4, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. But 4-on-4 is an amazing, live situation for players to play in, especially during the off season. 4-on-4 in the half court setting is beautiful. It's perfect live stimulation for basketball. To get those live looks. But I followed that 80-20 rule to a T. So, all throughout the off season, especially right after basketball season ended, I followed the 80-20 rule. I was training. So when the basketball season ended, I was still in Japan right after. So all that time I spent training, boom, just really focusing on my skill development, because I knew all my live reads and all my live looks were going to come when I got back to America during the summer to play in the AAU circuit. And so I get to the AAU circuit during the summer, and because I spent that 80% time developing my skill set, I allowed myself to play in the 20% time frame, the live looks in America during the AAU tournament. And that made me much more prepared and developed me for that sort of that read and those live looks. And so I was much more prepared in the AAU circuit, and I had worked my way back up into how I was perceived by scouts and coaches, and that's when I was blessed to be able to get the ranking as one of the top international players for my class. And then from there, I was able, after that following season, the next AAU season, then I got ranked as a top 50 player in my class for the state of Virginia, because I transitioned from an international player to a domestic U.S. player. But I say that to say, me trying to get right onto the circuit during my freshman year stunted my growth and development, because a lot of coaches saw how I was that year and said, oh, well, he might not develop to who we think he is. And so that stunted what I could have been, but I ended up where I needed to be. But a lot of players fall into that mode of like trying to keep up with the Joneses of these high-level AAU programs and high-level recruits, and they want to be on the AAU scene right away instead of focusing on the development and the skill set. And that's where the international market differs from America, like being in Japan and being in Europe. They really focus on the development and the skill set of the youth. They focus on the minutia, the very small details of ball handling and how to cut, how to properly defend, how to shoot, form shooting. They really focus on the skills and they really break it down, and that's the focal point. I mean, they have academies just for skill development. There's no live movements at all, live reads at all. It's all skill development, and that is the emphasis. That's the focus. And that's why I see a lot of international players, when they come over to America, they're so skilled compared to other American players who are who might rely on athleticism a little more. And AAU is stunting the youth culture or the youth development because there's so much emphasis on trying to just play and play and play. And don't get me wrong, there has to be a level of live reads. That's why we follow the 80-20 rule: 80% playing, 80% skill training, 20% live looks and reads. And what makes it worse with AAU culture now are the NIL deals. And it's a blessing, don't get me wrong, that guys can now make money off of their branding and their name without having to get to the professional level. But now guys are worried just about getting the NIL deal, just worried about getting the money, and have lost, as a whole, there is much more emphasis on the financial aspect as opposed to just developing. And it's AAU has lost its core foundation of providing kids a showcase and a platform to showcase their talent and their skill set. And it's all about, can you pay to get on the best AAU program? Can you get on the best AAU program? What AAU program can get to the best tournaments that summer? That's who you're going to play with. And guys don't care about development anymore. Coaches don't care about development anymore. They don't care about developing these guys. For the most part, they just care about what name is going to be the biggest attraction for them, and what name is going to help them get to the Peach Summit or Hoop Jam, Hoop Fest, whatever they call it now. And AAU culture has become muddled and riddled with politics and finances, things that take away from the game. And that's why even Kobe talked about how him not playing AAU basketball growing up added 4 or 5 years to his NBA career, to his playing career, and I'm blessed to be able to say the same thing. Not being highly in debt and engrafted into the AAU culture. I was blessed to not put as much wear and tear on my knees, and I'm blessed to feel the way I do now about it during my professional career, and it's no doubt because of the not playing a lot of AAU basketball, and that's why I'm as skilled as I am today because of that. So you have to strike that balance, the 80-20 balance, but it's unfortunate what AAU has done to youth development now. And one thing that youth development here in America can take away from the youth development in overseas basketball is the focus on skill set. But because there's so much finances and politics involved in AAU culture right now, I doubt we'll ever get back to that. But I would love to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about AAU culture right now in America? Is it hurting? Is it stunting the youth development? Or is it positive? I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section. But we are going to need to circle back to this topic at some point in the future. I just wanted to touch bases on it a little bit today. But with that being said, guys, in our next segment, we're going to be discussing whether Damian Lillard is actually a top 5 point guard in the NBA. The answer might surprise you. So be sure to stick around, guys. You're not going to miss it. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first two segments of our show, we talked about the recent news revolving around the 76ers with them planning to sign Caleb Oubre Jr. to a one-year deal. And in our second segment, we discussed whether AAU culture is stunting the development of youth basketball here in America. And that's a topic I would really love to hear your guys' insight on and what you guys think about that topic. So be sure to leave your thoughts whether you think AAU culture is stunting the youth development here in America. Let me know what you guys think. Write your thoughts in the comments below. But in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing whether or not Damian Lillard is actually a top 5 point guard in the NBA. And before we get started, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all the latest content that we released. And be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com. Click on the search bar, typing in GSMC Sports Network. That way you can gain access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. None of this is possible without you guys as fans. We're just grateful for all the love and support that you show us, and trusting us with all of your sporting needs and all of your analysis and insight, specifically on the game of basketball. But with that being said, guys, let's get right into it. Is Damian Lillard a top 5 point guard in the NBA? Hearing that question, people would think to themselves, well, automatically, well, yeah, sure, of course he is. No question about it. He's a top 5 point guard in the NBA. But I want to be specific about this. I mean, we have to understand that Damian Lillard is 32 years old right now, and he is coming off another injury, and he has shown that he, specifically over the past 3 years, that he can be injury prone. He has only been to one Western Conference Finals appearance, got swept in that Western Conference Finals appearance, and has shown that he is an amazing talent. He's an amazing talent, and don't get me wrong, he is a great player, but there are levels to great players, and Damian Lillard hasn't shown that he has the ability to lead a team to an NBA, to that championship level. He hasn't shown me that he can be the best player on a championship team. And specifically right now, his age, I don't think he is. And with someone that he's on the tail end of his prime, we have to start thinking whether he's actually a top 5 point guard in the NBA. So right now, number one would be Steph Curry. Steph Curry, without a doubt, is the best point guard in the NBA right now. Whether you think he's an actual point guard or he's a combo or he's a 2 masquerading as a 1, however you want to classify it, it says PG next to his name. He is the number 1 point guard in the NBA right now. And number 2, I'd have to go with De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox is the second best point guard in the NBA. We saw what he was able to do with the Sacramento Kings team that's young and talented. De'Aaron Fox is a player that can play both ends of the ball. Won the league leaders in steals last year, something that Damian Lillard hasn't been able to do. And he is only improving. He is coming into his prime. De'Aaron Fox is, and maybe he's still a year away from getting into his prime, but he's one of the quickest players in the NBA right now. He has a developing shot. His shot has developed tremendously, specifically off the catch from the 3-point line. So he's only improving. Number 3, I would have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, All-NBA first team. Also a top premier defender in the NBA. Not even in his prime yet, but we're seeing how that young OKC team is developing. They were in the play-in tournament last year, and for all intents and purposes, I plan on them being in contention to make the playoffs again this upcoming season. And number 4, I still have Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, I've always thought that Kyrie Irving was a better player than Damian Lillard, despite what other people have thought and despite what the media says about Kyrie. Listen, Kyrie is one of the best point guards of all time. He has always been better than Damian Lillard. Kyrie Irving is another player that can score at will and does an amazing job of getting to a spot. And people want to talk about success They want to talk about whether Kyrie has had success without LeBron. Well, name me 1 year outside of Damian Lillard's trip to the Western Conference Finals where he's had deep playoff success. I mean, in 2021, they lost to the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. Portland hasn't made the playoffs the past 2 seasons. In 2020, they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. And like I said, in 2019, that 1 year they made it to the Western Conference Finals. In 2018, they lost in the either the first or second round. So one of you guys can correct me on that. But yeah, so this is a team that has not with Damian Lillard has not as much playoff success as people think, and he's had ample opportunities. Damian Lillard has said many times that he thinks he's up there with Steph Curry as one of the best shooters of all time, best point guards of all time. He's had ample opportunity to prove that in playoff matchups against Steph Curry, i.e. 2016 and 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and in 2019 as well. But he's come up short by his standards in every single one of those series. So we have to start questioning whether Damian Lillard is actually on that level with Steph Curry. And coming in at number 5, you could argue that just based on where the career is at right now, that Ja Morant is better than Damian Lillard right now. And even with everything that Ja Morant does off the court, we're not worried about anything that's going on off the court. Just worried about specifically on the court. You could argue that Ja Morant is a better point guard than Damian Lillard right now. I mean, Ja Morant, once again, has led Memphis to the playoffs past couple years. Though they haven't made it to the Western Conference Finals, this is a team that's just starting to get into their prime. They're still young. They're starting to come into their own. They're starting to hit the peak, their apex of as a team, as a unit. This next season will be like their peak. So, however they finish this upcoming season will be their peak. But you could argue that Ja is at number 5. Me personally, I wouldn't take Ja over Dame, but Dame rounds out that top 5. But I would completely understand if someone wanted to take Ja over Dame. And I don't want to. This isn't me, quote unquote, hating on Dame or being hard on Dame. Dame is an amazing talent. Dame is a great player. He's a phenomenal point guard. But him not being on the tail end of this top 5 list more so speaks credence to the amount of talent that is in the NBA right now, but also sheds light on. Could we forget that Dame is, like I say, he's 32, 33 years old. He's on the tail end of his prime, and with the injuries that he has experienced over the past couple seasons, we have to question, can he stay healthy? And I don't think he can be the best player on a championship team, but that doesn't mean he can't be a starting point guard. I fully and wholeheartedly believe that Damian Lillard can be the starting point guard on a championship team, but I don't think he can be the best player. And there's very few players. There's only 5, maybe 6 guys that you can say they can be the best player on the championship team, and that's where you hit the superstar status, and that's the most exclusive club in the NBA. But Dame is a phenomenal talent. I think Dame will be a Hall of Famer based on how the NBA conducts their Hall of Fame voting process. But I know personally I have Dame rounding out the top 5, but for people that might take Ja over Dame or not having a top 5, I understand it. But Dame is a phenomenal athlete. He's a great player. He's a phenomenal player, great shooter, but he doesn't. Does he really play both sides of the ball? Is he efficient on both sides of the ball? I understand that he hasn't been asked to do that. I understand that he's not a statue defensively, but I name other guys that where you can see their impact. You can visually see their impact on defensive end with a De'Aaron Fox and a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. which tells me that it's capable. You're capable of being efficient offensively, but also being a stout defender. But then you can make the argument that those players don't have the same pressure offensively as Dame does. Well, then I would just counteract that by saying that those guys are able to play with a little more fluidity within the offense. I know that what we know is with Dame that the ball can sometimes stick in Portland, or when he's in Portland, the ball can stick with him sometimes, and people say, well, that's because there's lack of talent. But Chauncey Billups is developing an offense. His offense that he's developed is much different from what Terry Scott's had before him, and Dame has struggled with that. Chauncey is trying to get the ball to stick less in Dame's hands, and he's trying to get more fluidity. So Chauncey, who is a Hall of Famer, understands the importance of getting more balance within that offense. But Dame is showing that he's struggling adapting to that because he's been so used to having the ball in his hand the past couple of years, and that also shows credence to, is he really a superstar player? Because superstar players have the ability to develop and to play off the ball, like a Steph Curry. But that is why I have Dame rounding out the top 5 on my top 5 list. But let me know what you guys think. Is Damian Lillard an actual top 5 point guard in the NBA? And let me know what you guys think. Is he a Hall of Famer? If he were to retire today, would Damian Lillard be a Hall of Famer? I would love to know what you guys think about that in the comment section. But coming up, guys, in our final segment, we're going to be discussing what is the most underrated finals performance of all time. That is definitely not something you're going to miss. So we will be right back. Everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first couple segments of our show, we discussed the news around the NBA concerning the 76ers, with them planning to sign Kelly Oubre Jr. to a one-year deal. Great pickup for Philly. Great move career-wise for Kelly Oubre Jr. I think it's going to be a great fit for them. And in our second segment, we discussed whether AAU culture is stunting the development of youth basketball in America. And in our third segment, we talked about whether Damian Lillard is actually a top 5 point guard in the NBA, and where he ranks among the all-time great point guards, and whether he's a Hall of Famer. And in this last segment, we're going to be discussing the most underrated finals performance of all time. And I don't want to put the picture up yet because obviously you guys will then figure out who it is. But if you haven't already, guys, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. Be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, typing in GSMC Sports Network. That way you can stay up to date on all of our exclusive content that we post daily. If you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/GSMC-network./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC-network./tip. We're just so grateful for all the support you guys show us, and it's an honor to share my insight and analysis on the game of basketball with you guys. But let's get right into it, guys. Most underrated NBA Finals performance of all time. So listen, all throughout the 2000s, all throughout the 2010s, and even up into the early 2020s, we've seen great NBA Finals performances from KD in 2017, KD in 2018, Steph Curry in 2022, LeBron James in 2016, Kyrie Irving in 2016, Kawhi Leonard in 2014, Dirk Nowitzki in 2011, Kobe Bryant in 2009, Tony Parker in 2007, and Tim Duncan in 2005, and Shaq in 2000 and 2001. We great final performances throughout the 2000s and 2010s. But I want to talk about the most underrated finals performance of all time. And you could argue is the greatest NBA finals performance of the 21st century. But the 2006 Dwayne Wade led Miami Heat team down 0-2 against the Dallas Mavericks, went on to win 4 straight games, 2 of those games on the road, to win the NBA Finals. And this is Dwayne Wade, who was in his 3rd year at the time. He was 23 years old, if I'm not mistaken. One of you guys can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And the reason that this performance, Dwayne Wade's performance, is the most underrated, because people forget about this Heat-led team, because it was primarily led by Dwayne Wade. It had a Shaq that was past his prime, had an Alonzo Mourning that was past his prime, Gary Payton who was past his prime, Jason Williams who was past his prime, Antoine Walker who was also past his prime. Udonis Haslem, who was young, who was in his prime at the time. So it was a very old Miami Heat team, but was primarily, like I said, primarily led by Dwayne Wade. But the reason this was so prominent in this performance was so underrated are so prominent because in Game 3, down 0-2, the Miami Heat, Dwayne Wade had a clutch performance. He hit 2 clutch free throws in the game in overtime, and then he had 10 points in overtime to seal the victory for the Miami Heat. And that game right there, prevented Miami from going down 0-3 and sparked the next 4 wins for Miami. And each performance, in each game, Dwayne Wade showed up tremendously in the clutch, both on the defensive end and on the offensive end. I mean, averaged 34 points, 7 rebounds, almost 4 assists. This was a performance that was akin to Michael Jordan in the '91 finals when he played the Los Angeles Lakers. So this is a performance that people don't talk about too often. Also because when people especially younger people today, when they think of Dwayne Wade, they think of the time that he played with LeBron James, where he was hurt, but he also played the second option. And people forget that Dwayne Wade is the third best shooting guard of all time, and you could argue that he's the second best shooting guard of all time. And I say that because I have Michael Jordan, I have Kobe Bryant, and I have Dwayne Wade. But as I like to phrase it, Kobe is closer to number 3 than he is to number 1 in terms of the comparison between him and Dwayne Wade and him and Michael Jordan. But that's another topic for another day. But I do believe Dwayne Wade's performance in the 2006 NBA Finals is the most underrated Finals performance of all time. And because of his ability to come up big in clutch moments and the consistency over the course of the series. And this was a Dallas Mavericks team that was, was the best team in the Western Conference, and many analysts have predicted that they would win the NBA Finals. But great performance for Dwayne Wade, and like I said, without a doubt, the best Finals performance, most underrated Finals performance of the 21st century. And you could go out on a limb and say this was the best Finals performance of the 21st century. I have it up there, but let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Dwayne Wade's 2006 NBA Finals performance was the most underrated NBA Finals performance, or is it slated where it should be amongst basketball greats? But guys, that's all we have on our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well, so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast, GSMC College Football Podcast, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, and GSMC NFL Podcast as well. We'll be back again, same time tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and until next time, guys, peace.